Hello, this is Brett Knowles from PM Squared Consulting. This brief webinar provides an overview of the work that we did with the Carhartt team to translate their strategy into action through the Bounce Scorecard. It is important to note that key elements of the strategy and all performance-related numbers are fictitious. Overall, we took them through our award-winning 5-day process. On Monday, we helped surface the existing strategic objectives, formed a strategy map, and identified the priorities for the coming year. Based on that, on the second day, we helped them identify existing performance indicators and built out their Bounce Scorecard. On day 3, we began helping them translate strategy into action by taking a look at the alignment between their processes and projects and their performance against those strategic objectives. We identified performance gaps and helped ensure that their recommended projects were aligned with strategic intent. On the 4th day, we helped them implement the monthly management reporting processes, and on day 5, they went live with their pilot. Let's take a look at each of those steps. For the first step of identifying the strategic linkages, we used their existing strategy, which we derived from their website, management reports, and in fact a couple of key strategic and vision statements that were available to the organization. We used the 4 perspectives of the Bounce Scorecard: financial, customers, internal, and enablers. And of course, the way the strategy map works is once we determine our financial objectives, we can sort out what the customer needs are that we're going to meet in order to meet those objectives. Therefore, we can figure out our internal processes to meet those customers' needs to achieve financial success. And based on those internal processes, we can then determine what is the culture, competencies, and enabling structures required to build and maintain those processes to make the customers happy to achieve financial success. So overall, it's a clothing apparel manufacturer and retailer. Their topmost objective is to grow profitability. To do that, their key strategy in the near term is about growing revenue, not reducing costs. Now, to grow revenue, there are 3 things that they know they need to do. First, they need to help build out the Carhartt brand experience. And to do that, they need to deliver durable, functional, premium products and services. They need to lead in innovation, and finally, they need to help the workers both on and off the jobs with their clothing requirements. So how is it we underpin this? What is it we need to do to lead innovation? Well, if we lead innovation, that will both help us in our delivery of durable, functional, premium products and services, and it will also underpin our focus on workers both on and off the job. Supporting innovation are 3 core things: enhancing the cross-functional networks, continuously improving our processes, and building global partnerships for distribution. How do we do that? Well, we really do need to become more consumer-focused. And if we're more consumer-focused, that will help us understand which are the cross-functional networks that we need to enhance. It'll help us figure out which parts of the organization we need to improve and which global partnerships are going to support us best. Underpinning that are the 4 enabling objectives of building culture and trust and respect, developing effective leadership, attracting and retaining great people, and finally leveraging strategic technology. So this is their strategy map and explains what are their objectives and how it links overall to success. The next step is we need to make clear what our priorities are for this coming year. After some work, the leadership team came up with the following priorities. If you take a look at the objectives whose weightings are at 10% or above, you can see their focus is about developing leadership in aid of becoming more consumer-focused and building those partnerships. So clearly, at this point in time, the current short-term strategy is very focused on a distribution partnership network. The year after this, the weighting began moving up. They're going to be working on continuously improving the processes, enhancing cross-functional networks, and by year 5, they're focusing on financial growth. So this is the first step. Now the second step is to determine indicators of success. Now, the trick we do here is we focus on existing data, so we're never held ransom for information. But many of these are just indicators, so later on we may improve or strengthen them. But right now it's a bit like using, say, absenteeism as a proxy for employee satisfaction. It's not exactly right, but it's good enough. In this case, they're using employee total turnover as an indicator, for example, of attracting or retaining great people. They're using things like dollar training as a index or an indicator of whether we're developing the right leadership. And using this data, we can then, later on the same day, take that strategy map and put performance indicators on them. In fact, this is where Cognos comes into play. We can enable technology so that we can distribute this strategy map and scorecard across the organization almost in real time, as soon as the data is available. That completes the second day. Now the third day, it gets exciting. We now need to identify the project and process fitness and determine whether our actions are aligned to the strategy. What does this look like? Well, we should be able to take our strategic objectives, in this case listed across the top, and the core processes listed down the side, and we can determine the impact and performance of each of those processes against the strategic objectives. What we begin to see is some strategic objectives, like in this case grow profitability, all the processes are nicely lined up. We're likely to be successful. Others, like this one, build global partnerships, you can see the processes don't perform nearly as well. We probably have some performance gaps here we need to take into account. Likewise, becoming more consumer focused, we also seem to have some performance issues. Now, the reason this is important to look at it this way is if I looked at any of these processes, say production planning, they would say everything is fine in their process except for this one objective. Not bad. Same with purchasing. Everything's fine except for this one. Everything's fine except for one around technology. The dilemma is everyone seems to be weak in one of these core strategic objectives, and therefore it puts the strategy at risk. Now, we can take a look at this information in several different ways. One is using that strategy map. If leadership wanted to drill into any one of those objectives, we can build an impact diagram which takes that analysis that we just looked at from processes and begins to explain to management which processes are causing the operational issues that we're observing on the strategy map. This gives leadership a drill down into the information. We can also take the same technology and results and show it graphically. In this graph, what we've done is taken that same results from the table. The blue bar represents how well the processes are currently performing, and the gold bar reflects the gap between current process performance and what the strategy needs to be successful. So if we take a look at this, we can see that there are bigger process gaps around objectives like building global partnerships, becoming consumer focused, and culture and trust and respect. The reason this becomes important is if we're going to launch a project, if you had $1 to spend, would you spend it on attracting and retaining great people with only a small gap, or building global partnerships with a huge gap? Obviously, you'd focus them here. So the final step in this alignment is we should do the same analysis with the portfolio of recommended initiatives, and we'll represent those by green dots. So we'll do the same impact analysis, and here's what we see. We begin seeing that in some places we have a significant investment in gap reduction, in other cases not so much. And our concern here is, are we overinvesting in solving some issues and underinvesting in others? In this issue, for example, of attracting or retaining great people, even though there's a small gap, there's a huge amount being invested in projects. Over here, build global partnerships, where there's a big gap, there's significantly less investment in projects. So what we're trying to do here is surface the misalignment between processes and projects and strategic requirements. In this way, we can begin building other reports out through Cognos that begin to highlight the misalignment and what actions we might be doing to try to solve them. Now, that's day 3. And this is typically completed during that day because this information is available within the cross-functional team that's building out the scorecard. The next step is to begin building out the scorecard processes. I'm not going to go into much detail here other than saying a scorecard's results should be available to the leadership within a day or two after month end. We're not waiting for month end allocations and reconciliations as we tend to do with financial numbers. We also can begin to plan out where the gaps are in how we're currently deploying strategy and identify other opportunities. Things like, do we want to begin linking our accountabilities and compensation back to strategy? Do we want to begin using driver-based planning processes that use the same strategic drivers, and so forth? And then finally, on day 5, we launch the pilot to the organization. Now, we recognize this to be a pilot that will get fixed up in real time once it's released to the organization, but it's a starting point that at least everyone can get their hands on and begin working towards success. We hope this has been interesting to you. If you want to learn more about each of these phases or other client stories, please go to the Insight section of pm2consulting.com.